Good evening. My name is Valeria Willis. I am the host of Podcast for Freedom. And tonight, this is the Circle of Willis, episode 14. It's just funny that it's episode 14 and it's also February 14th, Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. Lots of love to everyone. And make sure you give love to each other because that's even more important. Tonight we have tons of information to give you and tons to get accomplished in this approximately hour-long podcast. It might go a little longer tonight. I have tons of videos to show you. But what we're going to do first is I am running for the governor of Michigan with the U.S. Taxpayers Party, also known as the Constitution Party nationally. And what I want to do is we're going to share we're going to share, my websites, and we are going to be, there we go. We're going to be sharing all the information on my websites with you. So this is the Willis for Governor of Michigan website. It's willisforgovernor.us. As you can see, it's got a nice picture of me, taxpayer party, a lot of things across the top, donations and such. Here's another one, Navy wife, candidate for United States Senate, Washington, D.C. I came in second in the race, and the race voting tally itself is disputed. I'm a farmer 19 years. I'm a teacher, student, researcher, insurance agent, and I supported Trump and did a bunch of work for him. So this is the beautiful website here. Share this with everyone. Next, we're going to go to the Willis for U.S. Senate website. This is where you can sign a petition to audit the vote of the Michigan 2020 race. There's a video here of me never conceding. And so you get a lot of information on this website too. Also, we have a podcast on Patreon. Podcastforfreedom.com is the name of the channel. This is a subscription service. And what you get with it is a ton of information that we have been making podcast after podcast after podcast on assembling, common law. Who Knew is the Constitutional History class by Katie Kraken of Michigan. Excellent, excellent stuff. The Rub by Mary Quite Contrary, and all the you-know-what things we can't talk about. Very, very interesting stuff. Willis's Parliamentary Law class for Assemblies, episode 1, and more. And there's many, many more podcasts that we have to share with you on Patreon. So please subscribe and sign up and get the learning started. Okay, so tonight we have a lot of things to cover. One of the most shocking things I heard this week was about the solar storms. They struck down the Starlink satellites. So what we're going to do is we will share a video on that, and you will be shocked just like I was to hear what happened.
Why doesn't every home in the U.S. have solar panels? The number one reason is not about sunlight or weather.
Let's start with what they told you. SpaceX launched 49 Starlink satellites into lower orbit for their usual validation phase, and everything went fairly well at first. They successfully inserted the craft into 210 kilometers altitude, and then the problems began. A geomagnetic storm occurred due to interaction with the sun's current sheet, combined with variable density to the plasma stream of the solar wind. 40 of the 49 were lost or are expected to burn up in the upper atmosphere. None of those lost satellites poses any risk.
40 of the 49 satellites were lost, my friends, almost all of them.
At 210 kilometers, which is 130 miles up, they are in the absolute danger zone for solar storms. Even at their post-validation higher orbit, they aren't entirely out of the upper ionosphere, but at 130 miles, They're at the key energy coupling point for the global effects of a geomagnetic storm. There was a storm earlier on the launch day, and then in the overnight hours after the launch. The solar wind cause can be found in the second row from the top, the solar wind magnetism, where you can see the blue line hold, strongly shift from the bottom to the top, and then hold again. This is a solar wind magnetic reversal. This is not abnormal. In fact, impacts from the solar wind magnetic reversal boundary happens about every week or two. Some impacts are stronger than others, but this is a normal thing, along with the normal solar flares and geomagnetic storms that we get each sunspot cycle. But something's not adding up here, not one bit. And this is what they won't tell you. This is a geomagnetic storm, two in fact, but at their lowest levels. This would be considered an extremely weak space weather event, one Earth endures 100 to 200 times a decade. Bigger storms we've seen once or twice a decade are 1,000 times greater than this. Some of those don't take out any satellites at all. In fact, SpaceX has launched in geomagnetic conditions 10 times as disruptive as this. So what happened here? The answer is simple. Earth's magnetic field is weakening. The magnetic poles are shifting, and this is a cyclical event that is unfolding again now. As Earth loses the dipole magnetic shape with the shifting poles, the field is weakening overall. Earth is losing its protective interface with energy from space, and every enhancement of the solar wind, every CME impact, and every crossing of the sun's current sheet has an easier route to both directly impact the upper atmosphere and ionosphere, perhaps we recall the particle penetrations are deepening and getting more common, and indirectly excite the global ionosphere through the equatorward traveling waves in the thermosphere that come from the aurora. This is more energy in, more global electric circuit power, stronger electrodynamic activity, and most importantly for SpaceX here, a critical change in the density of the environment. The heating was so extreme, it increased drag coefficients 50%. That is beyond the heating in modern models for solar storms 10 to 100 times bigger, and it's another signal that the Earth's vulnerability is growing as this age of Earth begins sputtering to an end. Its phoenix likely awaits only those who have the eyes to see it coming. Earth's magnetic field is entering excursion. You can learn what that means in our documentary from Christmas Day and in our video on the latest research showing the effects of this weaker field. Both those videos are linked for you below this video in the description box. I will see you in the morning for the daily update. Eyes open. No fear. Be safe, everyone.
Well, that was excellent. So they have 2 more videos where you can go and educate yourself more on the magnetic poles and the shifting of the magnetic poles. But all the YouTube chatter about how we have a new Starlink system, we don't. It's been blown out of the sky. 40 out of 49 satellites have been evaporated. There is no Starlink system. And that's kind of shocking to me after all the advertising and YouTube videos I've heard on SpaceX and Starlink satellite. Very, very disappointing. I thought we were going to get, a better internet. I guess it's not going to happen. Okay, so next we have, hang on one second. Okay, next we have, Are the March and April Warnings True by Perry Stone. Now, Perry Stone is a late find of mine. I just found him. He's a pastor at a church, and he is an exceptional speaker, a good, fine Christian man, and he cares deeply about people and about suffering. So he's kind of become a newscaster to help we the people based on what he hears, and also as he thinks about it from a biblical perspective. So he gives us both. And let me just get that video pumped up. Okay, Perry, and the name of the video, it's from YouTube, Are the March and April Warnings True by Perry Stone.
Hi, I'm Kate Courtley, Navy SEAL platoon commander, sniper, CIA contractor, and author of the SEAL Survival.
I want to greet everyone. Thank you for joining me on the Perry Stone YouTube channel. The title of this is called, Are the March and April Warnings True? And I want to share with you, first of all, a little introduction before we share some of the information. YouTube is an amazing place to get information that you probably don't get anywhere else. However, there are a lot of opinions as to what is going to happen in the future from people who are specialists and some who are not specialists who are always giving their opinion. I mean, the stock market was already supposed to have crashed, over the past year to year and a half, and the dollar was already supposed to have died the past year and a half. And so I'm a little bit skeptical when I just hear predictions being made when there may not be evidence. And of course, a lot of predictions based on speculation. So that's why I'm very careful sharing this with you, but I do want to give you what we do know. And that is this, that we are having, first of all, freight disruptions, and you know this, the freight, the ships that are coming in, the shipping containers that are coming in are in ports, especially on the west coast of the United States, just sitting there. Somebody had ordered shoes for Christmas, and when they finally got them, they all had mold in them, and they had to destroy them. It was a big shoe company out on the west coast. So that is a situation that is legitimately taking place. Secondly is a trucking challenge, and I'm good friends with the president of Covenant Transport, who I have a YouTube video with him being interviewed, and he can give you the details of the complications and difficulties in the trucking industry. For example, with truckers retiring, with regulations in certain states hindering them from being able to sit. They have to go out of state with their trucks. I won't get into all that. You can check that out with him. And also, if you've noticed what Canada did recently, and now there's these huge protests in Canada with truckers, then there is definitely a disruption in the supply chain. And first of all, some people have quit work. A lot of people, when they have the virus, have to stay out 5 to 10 days. There's this huge disruption again with Omicron, which is still out there. And then there's, brand new strands that are coming. So all of this combined together has created a perfect storm, you might say. Now, here's where I want to talk about something, and that is the food situation in the United States. There seems to be, if you go into some stores, and our stores here seem to be doing well, but I have had women on staff that shop and pay them to say, you go to some of the stores and there's things missing on the shelves that normally are not missing. And this has to, of course, do with the supply chain disruptions which are taking place. But then what is this going to do in the spring? According to some of the large industries that produce the food and can the food and ship the food and box the food, prices are going to increase an average of 5 to 8% on an average for most products that you buy in a store. Now, some will remain the same, but a lot of them are going to go up. Also, the Kraft Company, which is a great food production company, has said there will be certain food which will go up 30% higher in the month of March. Now, that was a statement that they came out with. And a lot of this is the supply situation, the supply disruption situation, not being able to get people to unload trucks, etc. I'll go into something else here that we discovered. And also, people who want dried food, which is the food, the long-term storage food that goes 20, 25 years, are having a real challenge. I have some friends of mine who actually sell this type of food, and they can't get it. One of my very dear friends, and Charlie knows who I'm talking about, they said, we're out of it. We cannot get the food that we used to supply people with hundreds and hundreds of cases of this every month. So there's something going on here that's pretty serious, especially when you talk about food. Food companies, the major ones, are definitely going to increase prices. And people, and this is what you got to understand, the reason the prices are going up is they are paying triple from pre-pandemic transportation rates. So in other words, it's costing them 3 times more to get it delivered from one location to another location than it was before. Some, however, are holding off if the food does not rot, and if the food will last for months, Some of the companies have said they're holding off shipping until the prices go down, and they're not sure when that's going to be. That's creating a shortage in some of the stores. There are storm disruptions as well, and there's also virus disruptions, people who are just not coming to work in the factories and not coming to work to drive the trucks and things of that nature. Now, a West Coast company said to deliver from east to west used to cost us pre-pandemic $7,000 a shipment. It has gone to $18,000 to $20,000 per shipment. So what happens is the cost is passed on to the consumer. And then we're dealing with inflation. There's deflation, inflation, hyperinflation. I think the more dangerous one, to be honest, would be hyperinflation. And I don't know that we're going to go into that. There are some people that's predicting that, I don't know. But some of this has been alleged, and I'm not a conspiracy theory person, I'm really not, but it has been alleged to be part of a global reset, and only time will tell how far that goes. Someone asked my wife is a wonderful cook. If you ever come to our main conferences and she's cooking her pot pies or her chicken salads or her fried pies for the main event, you got to get some of Pam's cooking. She is phenomenal.
Very good. I love what he said because, and he's giving you a month and a half warning. It's February now, and if you haven't stocked up by now, I don't know what to tell you, but what he's telling you is all your favorite foods you need to stock up. Now, another good thing to do, starting inside right now, because in February as a chicken farmer, I used to get all my chicks in February, started them in February inside all the coops and kept them in until the weather broke and the grass was out just a little bit. But you can start your plants to grow your own garden this year inside. You start them now, you get them growing, get some grow lights going. Okay, get the shelves. I just spoke with one of my daughter-in-laws this weekend, and she's all hepped up on getting her seeds, her plants, getting her grow lights going, and getting the food stuffs for her family going. We should all be doing this because I tell you what, I'm not going to pay 30 to 40% more for the same can of whatever. Okay, so that ain't happening. I'll go without. And I eat mainly fresh anyway, but I can eat fresh right out of my own garden too. So that's what I recommend we do. That was a very good video. You can watch it, yourself. Are the March, and it's on YouTube, Are the March and April Warnings True by Perry Stone. You could look that video up yourself and listen to the rest of it if you choose. But the main point was in the beginning where he was explaining why we have transportation issues. And that's just excellent information for people to know. Okay. All right. Now, this was a very weird video. All right. We've heard about John Durham, the prosecutor, working for the federal government on all these indictments. Okay. And people have been complaining that he's taking too long. But I found this strange little video on YouTube the other day by him. And I'm going to share the one with you. John Durham, Special Prosecutor, Chapter 21, The Reckoning. Now, he has obviously 20 prior videos like this. So go check them out on YouTube. I've never seen them before, so this was the first one I found, but it was very.
I booked our hotel and kayak. It's flexible for me to cancel.
Cancel? I haven't left the house in years.
Hello, everybody. Special Counsel John the Punisher Durham here. You know, the guy that took down James Whitey Bulger. So, long time no see. Where have I been? TCB, taking care of business. You know it, I know it, the American people know it. Oh, and a shout out to Noah. So I'm glad everyone enjoyed the smooth criminal performance because I really worked hard on that. Lots of rehearsing. Not. But where are we? Well, I can tell you that I've been burning up the printer. So you'll notice I'm dressed down today. That's because I got a plane to catch in just a little while. I'm heading down to D.C. Got a few things to take care of, if you know what I mean. But first, we got to pay the bills. There's this passage I got memorized. Ezekiel 25:17. Now, you want me to do it? You want me to do it? Because I will do it. And if I do it, I don't want to hear any griping about it. Okay. Allow me to get into character. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. That was Jules from Pulp Fiction. So, back to your regularly scheduled program. To sum things up, doing good, lots of printing, and soon, folks, very soon, things are getting ready to come crumbling down like a bad game of Jenga. Who wrote that? That was good. Kidding. I don't write anything. It all comes out of this noggin. So, until next time, folks, keep your ear to the railroad. And oh, I'm running low on scotch. Hello, everybody. Special Counsel John.
Okay, so I wanted to pause this and look around his office a bit, okay? He's got mailbags, postal mailbags here. Those are for indictments. It looks like he's got postal mail down here too. There's an 8-ball. That was the liquid to get your fate kind of ball. And then we've got Clint Eastwood on the wall. Okay, so that's what I see so far. Now, that was a rather weird video. I don't care who you are. I have never seen this guy before. I never heard him speak. I've seen him in a few news conferences and such, but he never acted like this, okay? But he says he's busy. He says he's working. He says things are rolling. So we have to believe that's going on. A lot of people have been complaining that he's taking too long to prosecute all these cases that he's got, but the indictments have been rolling out. We just don't get to see it. And that's the biggest complaint I have about any white hat operation, is that they're not showing us anything. They're not showing us enough. We need to see the truth and the evidence of what is going on. So if you are interested in that, he has more videos on YouTube, so go look him up. But I thought you should see that and hear that. All right, next we have Victor Davis Hanson. He's from Hillsdale College. How COVID lockdowns killed small business. And we are going to watch that one next, because it's true. We've had, I don't know how many businesses moved out of Michigan, but there's huge amounts leaving.
It's not hysterical to say that the COVID-19 quarantine and mass national lockdown, which we've never seen in American history despite our long experience with plague, encouraged the destruction of the middle class in general and the middle class business person in particular. And it championed or enhanced or empowered large corporations that were vertically integrated. The Amazons, the Targets, the social media companies, the Zooms. Now, how did that happen? Well, think for a minute. If you sold shoes and you were a small business, you were shut down. If you sold flowers, you were shut down. If you had a small restaurant, you were shut down. If you had a small business that repaired watches, you were shut down. If you sold phones, you were often shut down. And yet you could go into Walmart, you could go into Target, you could get something to eat, fast food, you could buy shoes, you could buy socks, you could buy anything. And when you went into Walmart or you went into Target or you went into any of these large chain stores, what did you see? You saw hundreds of people congested in there. It was very different than the experience of going in, opening a door, the little bell rang. There might have been one or two customers you knew, the small business person. You could say have you been vaccinated? Have you had COVID? All of that interpersonal relationship that's so innate to small communities and small businesses. But whether by intent or just accidentally or laxity, we essentially said to the small business person, you obey us, and you're going to shut down your business, and you have no power to object. You have no capital, you have no vertical integration, you have no influence. And then we said to the large corporation, people during this lockdown will still need to have shoes, they'll need to buy clothing, they'll need to buy food, they'll need to buy durable goods and appliances. And we select you to be the conveyor of that, and you're exempt from the lockdown, because we trust that you're large and you're efficient and you're wealthy, and we've dealt with you in the past through political PACs and donations and influence. And so it doesn't take a conspiracy to see empirically that the middle class and the middle class business person suffered enormously under COVID lockdowns and quarantines, and large corporations got larger and more powerful and more dangerous.
Very, very, very true. Now, also too, don't you think small businesses have redress against the government for taking away their business? There's no constitutional case that's ever been brought forward that allows the government to do this. It does not allow you to stop making money, okay, ever. So there should be redress of grievances here against the whatever authority it was that shut down your business. And if you want more information on that, call me, Valerie Willis, at 989-448-9580.
Ladies and gents,
and let's talk about it, because there are ways that you can get redress of your grievance. And I'll go into that more on the campaign trail as I run for governor of Michigan, because there's many people who have suffered losses. What about the people that suffered losses at the hand of Whitmer and her policy that violated the CDC requirement that she not put sick caca patients, I have to use that word, I can't use the regular word, so I apologize for that, but that's what I use for it, who did not follow CDC caca regulations to separate people coming out of the hospital and putting them away from the regular normal population in a convalescent home or an old folks home. She put them back where they came from and caused many more deaths. Now we find out, based on ongoing investigations that are going on right now, that many more people died than we have ever been made aware of. And that needs to be investigated. And if so, all parties need to be held accountable. But that's going to be something that I'm going to be focusing on in the Willis for Governor campaign in Michigan. What happened and who's responsible for it? Because we are not irresponsible people. We are responsible for our families. We are responsible for going to work. And gosh darn it, the governor of Michigan is going to be responsible for any policy she puts out that causes deaths or harm to people. How about the 600,000 people that haven't gotten unemployment benefits yet? Or the hundreds of thousands of people that are getting back charged when they've already been approved? That's unlawful and illegal. You cannot say they qualify for unemployment, then turn around and say, oops, now you got to pay us back. That's unlawful and illegal. Again, contact my campaign, because we are going to be doing something about that. Going into the next topic, this one's by Daryl Castle, and I'll just be reading this because this is an article, Medical Mandate Power Grab, by Daryl Castle. He's the 2016 Constitution Party presidential nominee. He's a Memphis attorney. He's a former USMC, excuse me, combat officer. And citizens want freedom. By now, I'm sure you have seen the videos of thousands of trucks lining up in the highway, all rolling into the capital city of Ottawa. The truckers decided to protest vaccine mandates that were affecting their ability to work and feed their families. The mandates were also imposed by the United States, not just the Canadian government. The difference is that the US mandates imposed by the Biden administration restricted the Canadians from crossing into the US, and the Canadian mandate restricted their ability to work at all. To recap what happened and is still happening, tens of thousands of truckers from all across Canada in the dead of a Canadian winter stopped their work, formed into a convoy, and headed to Ottawa. These men and women are just common people like you and me. They are not at all the gilded ruling elite that claims Prime Minister Justin Trudeau among its members. Did Prime Minister Trudeau talk to them, provide food, water, and fuel to them, or even mention that they were deserving of any respect? No. He did none of these things, but what he did do was refuse to meet with them at all. He said they were an insult to memory and truth. He was apparently so confident that tyranny had completely displaced truth and was therefore free to libel and defame any Canadian with different views. He said that unvaccinated Canadians were extremists, misogynists, and racists. He apparently thought that he could continue defaming anyone he disagreed with as the truckers began their convoy. They were just a small fringe minority, he said, who hold unacceptable views. Does that term make your blood boil as it does mine? And like I'm sure it did the truckers as well. They are still in Ottawa, and they will say they will be there for the duration. The Ottawa police have basically declared them to be terrorists and have confiscated their property. Friendly people tried to supply them with food and have even set up a community kitchen. The police take their fuel whenever they can get their hands on it. They arrest innocent citizens, doing nothing but standing by to voice their support. As an aside, they also confiscated the gas cans, then they put water in the gas cans and gave them back. That's the kind of tricks that the Canadian police are playing on the convoy truckers. Going back to the article now. What of the Prime Minister? Oops. Yep, friendly people tried to supply them with food and even have set up a community kitchen. Okay, I read that. What of the Prime Minister? Well, he has disappeared since making his opening statement. I guess he is hiding in a safe house so he won't be forced to actually speak to real Canadians. He knows that freedom can triumph over tyranny if enough people demand it. As Ron Paul used to say, no army can stop an idea whose time has come. I love Ron Paul. At least he stood up and said what was right. Even Elon Musk jumped into the debate when he tweeted, quote, "It would appear that the so-called fringe minority is actually the government," end quote. These events are an indication that the mandates are not about health or safety at all, but instead they are about control. You will obey, our elite rulers tell us, obey or suffer the consequences. These truckers have decided to take the consequences rather than surrender like sheep in passivity. So who is this man, Justin Trudeau, and what are his qualifications to hold the office of Prime Minister of Canada? Other than the fact that he was elected by a majority of Canadian voters, he has only one qualification, and that he is the son of the former Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau. Pierre was of military age during World War II, but declined to serve. He built his fortune and his political career at home while Canadians were dying on the battlefields of Europe. Pierre was apparently a devout communist and never met or even heard of a murderous dictator he didn't love. He went to the Soviet Union to participate in the great achievements of Joseph Stalin. He wrote glowing praises of Mao's regime in China. He had a friendly relationship with Castro and visited with him in Cuba. Some of the praise he heaped on Stalin was of new Russian cities built from the rubble of the Great War, but he never mentioned the many thousands of slaves who died building those cities. Justin seems to have nothing to recommend him to Canadians except he follows in his father's communist footsteps. What, I wonder, is his own merit or his own achievement? He has no scholarly achievement, no publications to his name, no business experience. but he has an accepted legacy, member of the global ruling elite, and therefore protected. He sounds a lot like Gary Peters, being 29 years in the U.S. Senate seat, never running a business, never working a real job. He's just a lawyer. Sounds exactly like Trudeau. Justin seems to have nothing to recommend him to Canadian except the following. For example, as a young man, he often appeared in blackface and sang the Harry Belafonte classic, The Banana Boat Song. He now says he considers that racist, but no resignation and no groveling apology. He is also free to call the truckers racist because one truck flew a Confederate flag. The Confederate flag, in my background, stands for the 12 tribes of God, with Jesus Christ in the middle. Anybody who knows the true history, the Confederate flag is the Christian flag, my friends. It's also the rebel flag, but at least the South stood up and defended their rights, their property, and their right to make money. God bless the South. The truckers have had just about enough of Justin Trudeau. When the working people of Canada come to the end of their rope and take to the streets in a peaceful, even respectful protest, the Prime Minister of a once great nation smears them with lies. The police threaten them with false arrests and steal their property. The police in Ottawa will most likely arrest them, except for the fear of the public outrage. The people of Canada seem overwhelmingly in support of the truckers. It was reported that when a police order went out to tow the trucks, not a single towing company in Canada would do it, and the police have no such tow trucks. The truckers are today's version of the ship workers of Gdansk, Poland in 1980. Come to think of it, that explains Pierre Trudeau's disdain for Poland and especially for the Solidarity movement. He chooses the Soviets over Poles, risking their lives for freedom. This is also reminiscent of Gandhi's popular uprising that drove the British Army out of India. The truckers are conducting a peaceful protest and work stoppage just as Gandhi did in India. In a famous quote from Gandhi, when the commanding British general asked, quote, "Surely, Mr. Gandhi, don't you expect to just march out of India?" End quote. Gandhi replied, "That's exactly what I expect, and you will march out because 150,000 British cannot control 350,000 Indians without their consent, and you shall not have their consent." I love this. This is such a good job, Mr. Darrell Castle. Today, as we can see, a similar pattern, but in some ways a reverse pattern. Instead of popular uprisings around the world against the elite as the common people tried to accomplish with Trump but failed, we see a gilded aristocratic elite conspiring to put down populist uprisings around the world and, in effect, enact a coup against the common people by using an engineered caca panic as an excuse to put down resistance and tell us all, you will obey us. The West has been moving in this direction for many years with the people voting, but otherwise passive like sheep. They count on change at the ballot box, but change avoids them. The process, well underway already, was greatly aided by the so-called caca pandemic. But despite that, this time around, the people of the world are coming forward to support the truckers. Politicians in the U.S. and in other Western nations make speeches and hit social media in support of them. As for our Catholic friends, Archbishop Carlo Mario Vigano wrote a powerful letter in support of them. Vigano, as you probably know, is persona non grata among the Catholic elite because he disagreed with the Pope on the subject of pedophile priests. I quote briefly now from the Archbishop's letter, quote, "Your protest, dear Canadian truck driver friends, joins a worldwide chorus that wants to oppose the establishment of the New World Order on the rubble of nation states through the Great Reset desired by the World Economic Forum and by the United Nations under the name of the Agenda 2030. And we know that many heads of governments have participated in Klaus Schwab's School for Young Leaders. The so-called global leaders for tomorrow, beginning with Justin Trudeau and Emmanuel Macron, Jacinta Ardern, and Boris Johnson. And before that, Angela Merkel, Nicolas Sarkozy, and Tony Blair. For the report, I'm more interested in the views of the non-elite, those people who work to feed their families each day. What do they think? Do they support their junior communist prime minister, or could they possibly hold unacceptable views similar to the truckers? GoFundMe recorded $10 million in gifts to the truckers from the non-elite across the world. GoFundMe was so concerned about the unacceptable views of the recipients that they tried to steal the money. International outrage forced them to return the money to the donors, but they would not give it to the truckers. Another site said they would be glad to accept donations for the truckers, and so far has raised in excess of $4 million. That money will buy a lot of food and fuel, and will allow them to stay in Ottawa for a while. And there's an update on that as well, where the new website was hacked. And what it did was it exposed all the names of the donors and how much they gave the truckers individually. Canadian officials are not excited about the donations from working people across the globe going to their enemies, responding to the voices of support like Donald Trump and Republican politicians. Canada's public safety minister, Marco Mendicino, said, "We're Canadian. We have our own set of laws. We will follow them." Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton tweeted that their states would investigate GoFundMe after that platform refused to give the truckers their money. I suppose the truckers' views weren't acceptable and that justified an elite's company theft of at least a breach of trust and contract. The Canadian safety minister explained it to the rude Americans that Canada had its own laws and they should basically just shut up and mind their own business. Yeah, right, as if Americans would do that. In conclusion, any justification for the CACA mandates has passed as more and more nations, provinces, and states abandon them. For Trudeau to abandon them would be an embarrassing loss of face and of control and would bruise his fragile ego. The ruling elite are parasitic. They produce nothing and add no value, and they will permit no dialogue because they hate and fear the dialogue that liberates. Perhaps worse for the rest of us is those around the rulers, whether prime minister, president, or dictator, know what the ruler wants and how he sees the rest of us. And so they find a way to make all information reflect those views. If he wants a lockdown, even though it makes no sense. Wow, that was great. That was by Mr. Darrell Castle, 2016 Constitution Party presidential nominee. I wanted to share that with you because I thought it was so important. Now in our last segment, and we're doing really good on time, we're going to get into the Freedom Convoy. I always like to end with happiness, and that last letter I just read from Mr. Darrell Castle, that was fabulous. and that's how we put together the fabric of what is really going on, is if we take the time to see events happening from other people's viewpoints, we can learn. This is not about Republicans and Democrats. It's not about colors of people. It's not about different faiths of people. What it is about is freedom or slavery. That's where we're at. This is also a religious war between God and Satan. And some people are hurting we the people, not helping us, trying to keep us down, take our money, steal our gasoline, all this stupid stuff. But there are those of us who are working on the side of God to help people make the world a better place and make me, for instance, making Michigan a better place. So next we're going to go to the Freedom Convoy speech by Canadian Army Major. All right, here we go.
Good day, folks. My name is Major Stephen Shalowski. I served Canada in the Canadian Armed Forces for 20 plus years. I hold a first-class honors degree in political science, and I have held several Army command positions. I have an urgent message for all Canadians. For nearly 2 years, our own elected government officials have been using the bullying tactics of fear, intimidation, coercion, and financial and physical violence against us to gain compliance for certain repeated medical procedures. We tell our children that bullying is wrong. We know it to be so. Yet we allow our leaders to do this to us. They have knowingly and repeatedly violated the highest laws of the land in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, as well as other signed international human rights agreements. Canadians have been lulled into believing that the same government who suppresses your freedoms in the name of safety will one day just reward you back with your freedoms. if you just comply to ever-changing rules and health orders. That, folks, is the very definition of tyranny, not democracy. Humans are inherently free. Kings and queens and government cronies can't give you your basic human rights. They are naturally yours. They can't be given, they can't be taken. They can only be suppressed. In the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Queen Elizabeth is recognizing in law our fundamental freedoms. The federal and provincial governments of Canada have chosen, through a well-planned and orchestrated set of measures, to trick and fool and scare you, the very people who elected them and pay their salaries, into complying with the suppression of our basic human rights. They have knowingly betrayed you and me under the lie of safety. This past Remembrance Day, as I stood in front of the military cenotaph in Fredericton to honor my comrades who gave their lives for others' freedom, I overheard the Premier of New Brunswick, Premier Higgs, and our Member of Parliament, Jenica Atwin, tell members of the public how special it was that these brave members of the military gave their lives for their freedom. That same freedom that these very liars and deceivers are actively working right now to suppress. I stood there, a soldier of nearly 21 years, as a senior officer in the Canadian Army, as a veteran of Afghanistan, participating in Op Medusa, the largest combat operation for Canada since the Korean War, where I watched my own brave comrades fight and get injured and die. But I also stood there as a person who hasn't taken the COVID-19 injection. The irony, so even though I serve this country, and it has been an honor to do so, an absolute honor, like many thousands of Canadians who choose body autonomy and pro-choice, I am unable to share in the same privileges now, like eating at a restaurant, going out in public to an event, or even traveling across provinces to see my child. This is happening to many others. These government traitors to freedom are suppressing the rights of the very people they claim to honor, and it made me sick to my stomach. These Canadian governments are now focused on our children. I am calling on the medical community to put an immediate halt on children's injections until the Canadian public can receive the accurate, truthful data from these COVID injection injuries that have already occurred. The Canadian public has a right to be.
All right, I would love to share more of this, but I cannot because he keeps using the words that will get me booted off. So the name of that video, it's Freedom Convoy - speech by Canadian Army Major Stephen on youtube.com. So if you want to see the rest of that speech, which I would love to hear, I'm going to have to wait until later. He's not wrong, but being in the front line as a veteran and still as active duty, hearing government officials talk about things like that, that's enough to make anyone angry. That's ridiculous. But I agree with him. We need more information. All right, now, Go Send and Go was hacked. I'm not gonna play this video, but again, it's a YouTube video. Give Send Go hacked, redirected to Give Send Gone Freedom Convoy. That's the name of the video. That's on YouTube. You can go see that for yourself. And then what I have Tucker Carlson explanation of what the trucker convoy really means. And he did a very good job with this video.
All right.
Gotta stop it. He did a very good job with this video because he explained.
You can watch movies through your phone.
I'm sorry, hang on a minute. It keeps trying to start by itself. Tucker. And the name of the video is Tucker, quote, colon, Justin Trudeau is attacking human rights. Okay, now we'll get into it.
Ain't you gotta let your cars?
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. When Democratic politicians across this country all of a sudden started to pull back their mask mandates, they did it virtually overnight, and of course they did it in unison, we naturally assumed that new polling had to be behind it. Someone at the DNC must have seen terrifying public opinion numbers and decided to abandon Project Quarantine before the midterm elections. That made sense to us. We explained that theory on the show last night. We still think it's probably pretty true. But it's also clear, as of tonight, that there is another explanation for this. Democrats in this country are looking north to their friends in the ruling party of Canada, and what they see there scares them. Canada's working class has finally rebelled after years of relentless abuse. Truck drivers are threatening to topple Justin Trudeau's creepy little government with their big rigs, and they may succeed, actually. The protests against Justin Trudeau's vaccine mandates have been far more effective than anyone in charge imagined. For Democrats in the United States, that's a pretty obvious lesson. Over the past 48 hours, Canadian truckers have blocked the major trade routes between their country and ours. Last night, farmers driving heavy agricultural equipment shut down the highways at the Manitoba border with the United States. You're seeing footage now from the town of Emerson, Manitoba. 1,100 miles away, a similar scene on the border of Ontario in the United States. Green tractors with Canadian flags lining the highway in protest. But the most meaningful blockade of all is taking place right now on the Ambassador Bridge. That's the privately owned span that connects Detroit to Windsor, Ontario. If you live in the upper Midwest, you know it well. A quarter of all the trade between the United States and Canada, one another's biggest trading partners, that's billions of dollars, comes across that bridge.
Now, did you hear what he said? A quarter of all the trade in America goes across that bridge.
Fox's Molly Line is reporting from Ottawa. That bridge is now completely shut down.
We're Canadian, and we want to be free Canadians.
Increasing concerns spreading through Canada and now the U.S. as the Freedom Convoy threatens trade along the border. Truckers blocking traffic at the Ambassador Bridge connecting Detroit and Ontario. A second crossing linking Alberta and Montana also shut down by protesters, calling for an end to all COVID restrictions and vaccine mandates.
We want freedom, freedom of all mandates, and that's what we're fighting for.
The Ambassador Bridge is the busiest international crossing in North America, carrying 25% of all trade between Canada and the U.S.
We want freedom, the truckers are saying, freedom from mandates. It's a very straightforward ask, but so far the truckers don't have that freedom, and so their blockade continues. So far, that blockade has forced the Ford Motor Company to shut down one of its manufacturing plants and to operate another plant with a skeleton crew. Toyota says it won't be able to manufacture vehicles in Ontario for the rest of the week. General Motors has canceled multiple shifts at its plant in Lansing, Michigan due to part shortages. So this protest is less than a week old, and already it is causing deep pain to at least one global industry. It's hard to overstate the historical significance of what we're watching right here. The Canadian Trucker Convoy is the single most successful human rights protest in a generation. If nothing else, it has been a very useful reminder to our entitled ruling class that working class men can be pushed, but only so far. When they push back, it hurts. It turns out that truck drivers are more important to a country's future than, say, diversity consultants or even MSNBC contributors. Who knew? The White House has no interest in knowing. According to the Associated Press tonight, the Biden administration is, quote, urging the Trudeau government to, quote, use its federal powers to stop this protest, to end the truckers' protest. In other words, crush them by force. Politico is reporting that Biden officials are coordinating with Canadian authorities to, quote, establish alternate traffic routes around the protesters. That's Scranton Joe, the pro-union guy, shutting down a labor action. Pete Buttigieg is the completely incompetent transportation secretary in this country. Apparently he's in charge of this effort. What Mayor Pete does not realize is it's not so easy. Truck drivers know a lot more about roads than McKinsey consultants do. An alternative border crossing in Alberta, for example, has already been totally shut down. They thought of that already, Mayor Pete. The Blue Water Bridge, which connects Ontario to Port Huron, Michigan, has been reporting delays tonight of nearly 5 hours. Now, there is an obvious way to fix this problem. Matthew Maroon, who's the owner of the Ambassador Bridge into Michigan, just spelled it out for Justin Trudeau, who's not terribly bright. end the vaccine mandates, and the bridge reopens. It's not hard. But Justin Trudeau won't. And he's decided he doesn't have to, because the truckers, as he's explained, have no legitimate complaint. They're racists, so we're not required to listen to them. Here is Trudeau in the Canadian Parliament on Monday.
The people of Ottawa don't deserve to be harassed in their own neighborhoods. They don't deserve to be confronted with the inherent violence of a swastika flying on a street corner, or a Confederate flag, or the insults and jeers just because they're wearing a mask. That's not who Canadians are.
Oh, so they're not even really Canadians. They're Nazis. So you don't have to hear anything they say. They don't even belong here. Maybe we'll intern them or expel them. Trudeau state broadcasters had been repeating these lies over and over and over again for maximum effect. Pravda parroting Brezhnev. That's what they do. What's striking, however, is that the media in our country claim to be independent, but they've been doing the very same thing. Watch.
Some of the organizers of this protest, which, as I mentioned, started more than a week ago, they do want to overthrow the government.
Canadian officials calling the situation a, quote, nationwide insurrection.
The police chief says COVID protests are a, quote, nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
A nationwide insurrection driven by madness. And just think of the language. I know it sounds familiar to you, right? A threat to democracy, an insurrection, sedition.
The police say that they are under-resourced and they are overwhelmed. They have said that this city is under siege.
It's not just truckers. There's a lot of, I've heard there's QAnon supporters in the crowd. Residents that I have spoken to who say they feel terrorized, intimidated.
It's a cult.
Well, that is media for you. They will put forward the narrative that they want. Those people are peacefully assembling and listing their grievances to their public servants, and they have a right to do that. Now, in my last podcast, I pointed out this point, okay? Canadian citizens in Ottawa or in anywhere in Canada, you pay your taxes. You have the right to go stand on the sidewalk that your tax dollars paid for. If you want to go stand in the Parliament building that your tax dollars built, you have the right to do that. If you want to park your truck or semi in the street that your tax dollars paid for, you have the right to do that. These people are not doing anything wrong. They're not hurting anyone. They're not threatening anyone. Okay, they are just big elephants sitting around waiting for their rightful demand to be met. We all want an end to this bull SHIT. Okay, we all want an end to it, and we want an end now. People can choose to wear masks if they want to. End the mandates, and the requirements, end all this stuff. And if you want to still go on wearing your masks, you can. You want to still go on and get SHOTSs, you're welcome to do so. Nobody's stopping you. But those of us who choose not to, we have the right. We have rights also, and that is the whole point. Now, tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end with a song because I love music. And this is called We're Not Gonna Take It by Wicked. So this is a cover band. So we'll end with some music. And then I will see you next Monday, 6 p.m., same time, same station, live. Have a great week.